Ladies and gentlemen, what is good? It is your boy Cheats. That's right. Don't adjust your sets. We are back now, back from what could be just an outstanding, phenomenal year in baseball, that is 2024. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You see him on the screen. I'm bringing in my brother. The one and only Clinton Yates, ESPN Daily Podcast, Anscape. He does it all. But before we get to any of that, let me
All
just
right.
really take care of our early housekeeping. This might be the last time this year because guess what? The sponsorships change from year to year. So I don't know how this works.
Well,
But
I will tell you this, Cheats. The reason it's definitely the last time this year for me is because I'm a new dad, and this
that's
is in
right.
fact the last thing I'm doing. Period.
I
Before
love it.
going on leave, I said I got to get my man Cheats
You
in.
got
I'm
to.
not gonna walk off the daggone year without talking to you on your
Oh my
show.
God.
So that's what's going on. You're the last
So
thing, and then I settle in. And I'm gonna be daddy daycare from there on out.
yeah, and we're gonna say congratulations. We're gonna talk about all those great things as well. Let me say this: the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast is always brought to you by Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Herencia 21, Numbers Game, Rebellion Harvest. Make sure you check all of those wonderful sponsors out. We will have new sponsors, more sponsors in 2025. But yes, you mentioned it. My brother Clinton Yates is here. We're going to talk for a little bit about just the state of Black baseball, baseball in general, the year that was 2024. But I told you off air, I want to start with you with a question that I think is unique and specific to you
Mm-hmm.
because 2024 turned out to be an extraordinary year when we talk about some of the things that went around the game in relation to Black baseball. And you, my brother, had a front row seat and I almost feel like this year in the articles you wrote and the things that you participate in, if you're talking about, the Ron Washington piece, which I think deserves every award it should be
Thank
nominated
you.
for and win, because that was an amazing piece of work. But you talk about being at Rickwood when Willie Mays passed. You talk about the East West Classic this year, and you talk about all these Jackie Robinson statue, all of the things
Yeah.
where I'm looking at Clinton Yates and Clinton Yates' words, and even before we even get too far down the road, even the end of the year, Clinton Yates, Claire Smith talking about the Dodgers and the Yankees. I mean, my
Yeah.
brother, I know you've been writing baseball for years.
Mm-hmm.
For you, did this year feel different? Did it feel like a culmination of things that you've been working on kind of your whole career?
Well, thank you, Cheats. Number one, I really appreciate the kind words. I mean, you know what it is. I saw you this year. We
Yep.
saw each other in Texas. Like, you know what the grind is like, just in terms of the physical output, something that I want to definitely stress when it comes to young folks out there thinking that this job is all about sitting behind computers or yelling in the cameras and microphones. Nah, B, if you're not at the park, you don't know what's going on. So there's that. But yes, very much so, Mark. And in a way that, like, I don't know that during all of this, I was able to really assess that. But part of the reason why I wanted to make sure that I talked to you is because I don't know that I have really super downloaded it. And so, that's something I wanted to do here. I mean, the start of the season with Uncle Ron taking over at Arizona, in Anaheim.
Mhm.
The reason I'm thinking about that started before that at the winter meetings
Mhm.
when, all of that stuff was going on. We were just sitting around Nashville all that time. But getting to connect with him to begin the season, and I was there before the big leaguers got there for a little bit,
Mhm.
which is always an interesting vibe at a major league spring training because you never really know how much the manager is going to be involved. You never really know what coaches are doing what. And sure enough, he's out there doing his drills on the half fields, doing everything that he needs to do to make his imprint on a franchise that frankly has not had the best reputation in 30 years. But presenting him with that chart of all those brothers. I mean, I don't know that there's a world in which you could have described to me when I started this
Right.
what would be the most fulfilling thing, but that was part of it. And he was
Mhm.
just like, man. And he sort of looked at me and he looked back at it and he looked at me again. and we did all the stuff we had to do for the show, for the piece. And, peeling back the curtain here a little bit, we made sure to hire a camera crew and sound team full of us, full of brothers, because we thought that was going to make a difference in Ron's ability to open up and talk. And it did. He said as much. And I don't say that to be flip. I say that just because it mattered. There was a community sense that wasn't hard to do either. We didn't have to go beating the bushes left and right for people to understand what was going on. So that's just something that's important sort of from a sidebar standpoint. But really to think about the impact. And I also wrote a column around that, just sort of around Ron's history and talking to some of his old teammates and old players and finding out things like, he was roommates with Mookie Wilson down in your neck of the woods in Richmond, and so Preston Williams considers Uncle Ron like a second dad and all this other stuff where I was like, right, the connectivity is interesting to look at from a graphic standpoint and the numbers. But then when you talk to the dudes, you get all this life interconnectivity that's just really fascinating. And it set a foundation for the season that I don't know that I was ready for in terms of just thinking about what was going to come next. There was just no way. So getting that start off to the campaign was really important to me. Yes, absolutely, Cheats. There's no way around that because I had sort of reorganized that idea in my mind. I want to shout out everybody too at the ESPN data and graphic visuals. And I mean, the work they did on that was
that graphic
outstanding.
Yeah, that graphic is in itself. Is it that graphic in itself? I spent hours at. I literally hours.
It's really phenomenal, and they did such a great job with that, and it was so important for them. I was really honored when they came to me with it and said, "Hey, we need to really make this shine. What can you do?" I said, "Oh, I know exactly what to do." They had all the data, they had all the graphics, they had all the stuff, and we worked together in a team-like manner to make sure that entire package came out. I could not be more proud to be teammates with them as well as coworkers in that situation. It was fantastic. But yeah, that's the start. I mean, I'll let you ask about keep things, each thing going forward, but that was a life changer, and no baseball had been played in the regular season to that point.
And it just seemed so perfect. It really did. And again, I could talk about not only kind of the article but like you said, the way that it was presented to an audience, because I often think that we've got to figure out new ways to tell stories, especially baseball stories for our community in 2024.
Yeah.
There's when we're at the end of the season and going into a new year, we're all very kind of reflective and retrospective and so forth. One of the things that stood out to me was we've got to figure out new ways to tell these stories built for the audience that is today. And
I gotta say, Cheats, quickly though, I gotta say when that thing dropped, I will admit you gave me the best compliment ever, which was you hit me back. You said, "I got to step my game up, Yates."
It was so good. It was so good.
That made me feel really special, dog.
Obviously, not just your words, which are always.
I get it. But
the rollout, the video, like you said, the graphics and so forth. And you know what? You were alluding to this, but for the first time in a really long time, it felt like everybody that had a hand in it cared.
Yeah.
They cared so much to present this in a way that anybody that was tangibly interested would be like, "Oh, I got to see what this is." And when they start to dig into it, and I will tell you, not everything as we go through this kind of microwave world of here today, gone tomorrow, here today, gone tomorrow, the care is usually missing. And you had so much care, and I'm going to hit two more as we go through that I know, because I was, full disclosure.
Yeah.
We text a lot. We talk every once in a while.
We are actual friends.
So the care that was put into, you tell me which one you want to go to first, because it was the Jackie Robinson story and Rick Wood and Willie Mays. Like the care that was put into those situations just really was perfect for you.
Let's talk about Jackie first, because that came to me in a very different way than usual. I was working with the old E60 group that I used to work with back in the day a little bit more when I lived on the East Coast. Shouts to my man Dave Saronic, who was like this story came across. We were going to do it. I said, if anybody has any objections to Clinton Yates doing this, I'll be leaving. And there were none. And so I'm kind of hyping that up. But he was like, yo, we hit you up immediately. We just wanted to make sure you were even available. And I said, well, if by available, do you mean you want me to just talk into a microphone, or do you want me to come with you? And he said, if you want to come to Wichita, Kansas to see what this looks like, you are more than welcome to come. So you're daggone real. I got on a plane and went to Wichita, Kansas, because as you know, a big part of what I like to do is be in a place, to understand a place well before I'm talking about just what happened when I was there. That seems to me to be sort of my duty in a lot of ways, and I have the privilege of being able to do it, so I try to execute that. And when I got to Wichita, now I've been to Kansas. My mom was from KC-Mo. Like, it's not like I've never been to this part of the country. It wasn't that at all. But I'd never been to Wichita. And, you know, that old White Stripes song, I'm going to Wichita. Like, that's going through my mind. You know what I mean? Seven Nation Army. And I don't really know what to expect. And I've got a couple guys who are friends who played at Wichita. And I hit them up. And I was like, yo, what's the deal? And I got a little bit of the lay of the land. And so when I got there, I wasn't entirely sort of fearful of what may come. And I don't mean fearful in the sense of like fearing for my safety, but you just never know when you go to a new place what something's going to be like. You just don't. And that's a big thing, especially when people come in and they ask you what your job is, and you either tell them or you don't. And you're trying to find people, but you don't want to, like, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be like that dude that everybody knows is around. That's weird. So I ended up looking up some history of Wichita. And if you haven't read the story, folks, I implore you to read it, not because of anything I say, but because of just what actually happened in Wichita back in the day, which was the first real student sit-in in this country. And it happened in a building that I did not figure this out until I was on the plane. That was now the hotel I was staying in. And I was
wow.
Like, what is going on here? This is beyond a coincidence. And so as it turns out, there's a speakeasy in that hotel that's named after the drugstore where the sit-in happened.
Oh, wow.
And there's only a plaque. And this is the backdrop to Wichita. And this has nothing to do with what I'm even there for. It was a history lesson field trip that had all sorts of tentacles well beyond anything that I knew before I planned on going. So there was that element of it. Got to see a ball game over at Wichita State. You know I love college baseball. If I'm driving down the road and there's a ballpark and a game happening, likelihood I stop above 85%. This time I planned it, and it was great. So that was fun. And that was all just sort of backdrop on the situation. But when I finally got to the story we were doing in terms of what we were ostensibly there for with the cameras, was League 42. Now, for those of you who don't know what League 42 is, it's a league that was started for kids that basically aren't your select kids. And you've got a young man who plays, you know what I'm saying? There's so many different variations of leagues out there, whether you're trying to be elite, whether you're frankly a filler team for a travel squad, you know, Little League is this. And just the idea of a neighborhood recreational league from Bob Lutz, like, who wrote for the Wichita Eagle. It's just, I didn't know that it was going to affect me that much. Just seeing kids play baseball because they like playing baseball. There's no, and I don't mean this to knock anybody who's a parent who's getting a very serious track for your kid. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that, like, it was so refreshing to see in such a frankly depressing place because of what had happened. If you don't know the full story, this Jackie Robinson statue was stolen and vandalized, purportedly from a man who wanted to, you know, put it down for drugs. And there were images of it, there was video of it, and, you know, not to sort of relaying news to you, but if you know, please. No,
it was ripped off. The only thing that was left were the shoes. The whole statue was ripped off.
It was a mess. You know, it was a mess, and it was a reasonably big news story. And the reason we went,
the national news story.
Yes, and the reason we went is because we went when they were bringing the league back for the first time, when they knew the statue was going to be there. And I mean, it was an emotional time for me, because to see the joy on the kids' face, to just be doing something. These aren't seam-head kids that are arguing about God knows whose favorite player is. Not that they don't like baseball. Don't get me wrong, they do. But they're out there trying really hard to just accomplish something and play and have a good time and just be good at it. It's not a fashion show. It's not of a equipment showdown between parents. It was none of that. And I'm not saying that everything has to be gritty and grimy. That's not my point. Everybody had everything they needed. It was just a competitive league where the kids wanted to play. The dads weren't all acting like they were going to be the next varsity coach around. None of that. None of that. And they had the ceremony. And one of the things that really touched me there was that the artist who had done all of the art inside the little pavilion area there where the statue was, she was there. And she brought her daughter. And she talked to the kids, and she was an art therapist. And she asked these kids about what their feelings were about seeing the statue being taken and all these things. And it was just, I don't know. I'd never seen anything like that. We get a little too caught up in the competitive elements of these games sometimes, Cheats. And like we'll be at showcase tournament this, travel tournament that, area codes here, tryouts there, and everything is so performance based that you kind of lose track of it. And it's not that it's the Sandlot. I'm not saying that people are playing under the fireworks. It wasn't like some crazy magical thing. It was just very real. And in a town like Wichita, to be able to see that was really restorative. And, I was blown away at how sort of historically forgotten Wichita is as a black city in America. And I felt like that story really, at least for me and my kind of internal path as a black person, it really, really set me right.
Yeah, there was because I remember you we were talking during the time and you were really just League 42. I think it was Mr. Lutz and
Lutz, yeah,
Mr. Lutz, League 42, Mr. Lutz, and just the overall humanity, like use the word, but humanity of the situation, where it was just like this is really something that it just really kind of pulled at the heartstrings, and a lot of people stepped in and was like, we're gonna rebuild, if you will. And a lot of people got involved and said, we're going to take care of the statue being, replaced and like put back up. But it was just by you being there and you telling me, it was like, this is not really what you think it is.
Yeah.
This is actually something that's different, but in a really, I think, kind of, like you said, restorative and heartfelt and like humanitarian way. Like, this is something that's good that we can be associated with baseball.
Right. They've got a facility across the street from the parks where there's an office, there's an indoor facility. The indoor facility, by the way, is like nice.
Yeah.
Like you could run a full week worth of baseball camp there if you really wanted to on the indoor. It's pretty sweet. They had a health clinic and it's like, yeah, bro, they got classrooms and a facility across the street. All they're doing is playing baseball. You know what I mean? And you want to learn, you want to get a scholar, sort of a tutor scholar, you can do that too. And look, some of these programs that we see that people throw money at, God bless them. They do a lot of good things. But when you get there, it feels like everything comes with something else, or there's always some sort of catch. And like, nah, this dude is retired. This is just what he does. And so to see that up close was really, really powerful, I would say.
And I actually do think it was interesting because we never, like, I always remind people that people make the news. Like, the news isn't just this thing of like, this is a reporting of really what's happening. No, there's kind of people behind what news stories get elevated, what news stories don't. And I mean, for obvious reasons, for people that live in America and understand news and understand civil rights and race and Jackie Robinson, when this became a national story, because it became a national story.
It did, yeah.
I think people looked at it from a national standpoint, wanting to see the worst of it. And obviously there was a lot of bad there. I think the way that you were able to articulate some of the other side of that, the others, like the real human spirit, and the fact that, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even know how diverse League 42 is. Like on the optics of it. They just assume they hear Jackie Robinson statue vandalized, and there's all of these kind of thoughts and stereotypical thoughts and things like that. But I really just thought the entire story was a story that may be a little bit deeper than what was on the surface, and I thought you bought that out.
Thank you.
Then I think there's also a way, because I do think Jackie Robinson's an extremely complicated man. And this story, I think, put a kind of a new focus, not a new focus, but just a different focus on Jackie. That again, I don't think you'd have to look deeper on the history of Jackie to go deeper than the story. But I think years and years and years of just kind of other, people telling people who Jackie Robinson is.
We hear the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
So
I get it.
like,
I
was kind of in a way pleased that there was like a focus on Jack. Like, this was important because it was Jackie, but Jackie meant so much more than maybe what you hear about or what you watch in 42. Right?
Yeah, there's the message that's sent from the league. There's the message that the foundation and the family put out. But then there's stuff like this that people are just doing on their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is something that I think a lot of folks forget about. And, to your point about the humanity, that's something that, and, we can move on from this. Just the last point I wanted to make about it on the journalism front is, that's the point of showing up. You don't know that until you get there. The place could have been a wasteland where everybody hated everybody. And this was a real actual problem that I was not into. Like, that could have been real. There was no way for me to know that until I got there. And when I got there and I saw how much this league meant to certain people, and just like baseball in Wichita is like this whole other thing, by the way. Like, if for those who don't know, the Wichita Wind Surge is the current name of the team. They built a ballpark during COVID, like, just because they sort of wanted to. It's like one of the nicest ballparks in minor league ball that people don't know about. There's a whole museum in there to the National Baseball Congress. For those who don't know what the National Baseball Congress is, it's this like it's now just a semi-pro tournament, but for years it was like the best college players would come play in basically like a league. Like, before these wood bat leagues and all these were super popular as they were, that one was the big one. And there's all this stuff there. There's this whole museum. Wichita's not some cow town, like, at all. You know what I mean? And so that was something I learned, and something I'm just, grateful to be able to do, as part of this gig, for sure.
I learned a lot about the Mordovas this year.
Yeah.
Which was the Negro League team that played.
You can tell them about that day.
Yeah, the Negro League team that played the Klan, and like all of this stuff that went along with that. And then, like you said, as college, like, I'm a college baseball nerd. And so the Wichita State Shockers were a legit program.
Oh, yeah.
Still is, but they were legit, like College World Series legit for years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Wichita State Shockers are part of the reason I like college baseball at all.
Yeah.
They're the OG. The OG look. Shouts to Joe Carter, by the way, Wichita State legend. The absolutely. OG look, that wacky field they play on. I got to see that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it was a great experience. And they do baseball games like a lot of teams do football games. There's people up there, there's food all in the thing. It's great. Really fun.
And so two things that happened, I think, around this time as well. One of them I was at, I don't think you were at, and then one of them you were at that I wasn't at.
Yeah.
So I was at the East-West Classic in Cooperstown.
Correct.
Which turned out to be, I mean, again, these are just like blocks and blocks and blocks of what made 2024 like this interesting thing for Black baseball. And so I won't harp on that because I've told it in other podcasts and so forth, but I don't know what the number was. It was a record number of Hall of Famers and Black baseball players descending on Cooperstown to play a game, like play a real baseball game. Like, Curtis Granderson goes yard, and Ryan Howard goes yard, and Adam Jones is out there, and David Price is pitching, and I'm like, what is that? Do a sold out, like,
I was legit mad. It was one of those things where I tried to say to myself, nah, it's cool. There's no FOMO. There's this, that, and the third coming up. And then I started seeing these pictures, and I was like, what are y'all doing? Damn, I'm missing this, and like, you're right. And I just want to say this from the outside, as you would say.
Yeah.
Like, I remember thinking, like, I don't really know what I thought that was going to be, but
exactly.
When it happened, I was like, well, damn, y'all really pulled this off. And not even being flip, like, that looked like one of the most fun events of the year of this sort of circuit that we've got now.
It was so much fun, but it was so much fun because you could see like the family reunion happening in real time.
Yes.
You could see people seeing each other. And I know you're going to talk about this in the next thing we're talking about, but you could see people that hadn't seen each other in a long time. And they just, when you saw their faces and you're just like,
that's amazing,
hugging each other and how real it was. And it was kind of funny because they're having this like reunion experience. And then in the back of their mind, they just start chuckling. They're like, oh, snap, we got to play a baseball game.
There's got to be some trash talking.
Game.
Yeah.
Like, who's ready for this? Like, who's really going to – how hard – like, the question before the game was, how hard are these guys going to go?
Oh.
And they said it. Somebody told me. They were like, Cheats, listen to what I'm telling you. Like, because these guys are like, the even the guys that look like they could still play today. Curtis Granderson looks like he still play a
Oh
full
yeah,
9
he's
innings
cut.
today.
Yeah.
But they were like, Cheats, I'm telling you, it's gonna be 2 innings and I'm out. They were like, nobody's gonna go 2 innings out. They all
No way.
are like these amazing players that wanted to play.
Yep.
And I just remember, like, these are the things I looked in the dugout in Cooperstown at Doubleday Field. Looked in the dugout, and I kid you not, Eddie Murray talking to Fred McGriff, talking to Joe Torre, talking to Monet Davis. And you're like, what is happening? Like, what is happening?
It's like back in the day when they would put all of the cartoon characters together for like the Laugh Olympics or whatever. Like,
great.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I don't think they're ever like, because the way that it worked out, and it was like, Cooperstown does every year they do some around Memorial Day, they do some type of old timers game. This year they wanted to make it a tribute to the Negro Leagues and the East West Classic.
Sure.
And shout out to the right people. You get the right people to make the calls, and Chris Young, our guy CY.
Love CY, dude.
E.C. Sabathia and Adam Jones and all of these guys were the guys making the calls. And when they called, and everybody said the Players Alliance and Hall of Fame collaborated, they also did another thing, because I'd never been in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they had a brand new exhibit that was dedicated to Black baseball, and they made that Saturday all day free for anybody that wanted to come and see it. So it was just this perfect Players Alliance Hall of Fame. They played this game. You got to see. And the last thing I'll say about it is I've got this picture. I took this picture, and it was, I'm going to get it wrong, but it was Fergie Jenkins, Dave Winfield, Harold Baines, CC, Edwin Jackson. I think Curtis was there. And it was just like they were all doing like sit down, and they were just talking about what it was like to be a Black baseball player. And so you've seen me around.
They're in the grandstands or whatever. Like, and there's the overhang. I saw that was a great photograph. Yeah.
Right, but you see, you've been around me enough to know I carry around this like instant Polaroid.
Correct. That's where I was really jealous. I was like, man, Cheese has the fly treatment and everything going. I'm sitting here looking at this, dog. Yeah.
I just got the instant Polaroids going, and I got to just see some of the coolest, like, candid, just awesome stuff. And so, but I lead into that to say, because they asked me, again, rule number one.
You're embedded, as we say.
No. But rule number one, never ask a man about travel while they're traveling.
Yeah.
That's rule number one. So I think I told you this story. So I'm in Cooperstown, and this is 3 or 4 days away from family, like you're saying, and so forth. And I'm having this experience, and they ask me, like, it's a week later or a week and a half later, Cheats, do you want to go to Rickwood? You can go to Rickwood. Do you want to go to Rickwood?
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I was like, I got another job. You're like, taking time off of work. I'm living the dream now.
You made a choice. Yeah.
And I made a choice to say, you know what? I'm not going to do the travel there. I'm going to watch Rickwood at home, because I didn't even know at the time, you didn't really know what the access was going to be.
Yeah. Right.
And so I made the decision not to go to Rickwood, because I was in Cooperstown. And then Rickwood happens. And I don't even know how to set the stage.
So quickly, let me interject here and say something quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really, really, in retrospect, quite ironic. And I just want you kids at home, I'm being serious about this. Like, pictures like what Cheats got to do specifically in a place like Cooperstown, that just doesn't happen. 100 years from now, when people look up what was happening in this time in their lives in Black baseball, they will find that. And that is something that I do not take lightly when it comes to how well you document the culture and the game. Sneak peek, I wrote a column about Mr. 3000, the movie. This year's the 20th anniversary, and how that relates to some of the brothers that are going to be on the ballot for the Hall of Fame. So there's a connectivity point there that, there is a thing. But to your point about making choices, Rickwood for me was a pilgrimage on a couple different levels. Now, for those who want to understand my process a little bit, sometimes it takes more than just when you're there. I went to Rickwood Field during NABJ last year. Mm-hmm. The first time I ever got there was when the press day was supposed to be. I will never forget this. The event was at 3:00. Now, listen, God bless NABJ. We know what goes down at that conference.
It's
and
amazing.
I'm not just talking about what happened this year in Chicago, which is another story.
We're not going to talk about.
We're not going to talk about that. That is legitimately off limits. If you know my phone number, I will tell you. If you do not, don't ask anybody for it. I'm talking to the viewers. No, but so Rickwood is a situation where they're like, oh, we're going to unveil what's happening at this field in a year. It's at 3:00. I'm like, 3:00 p.m.? I was like, I'm waking up and going to the yard. Like, I don't know what y'all are doing. Like, there's no world in which I don't just get up and go there immediately. That's like, sorry. I don't care about the conferences, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't even technically there for the conference. I was there for this. Happened to dovetail, so I got to see a lot of people. So I get there like 10 a.m., 9 a.m. And early enough where there's still little dewdrops, you know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, you feel the vibe. It's not quite sunrise, which is my favorite time to be at a ballpark. That's another story. But I remember the guy, shouts to Gerald, who is president of the Friends of Rickwood. And he was like, oh, so do you want to take the tour, this, that, and a third? You want to, we'll show you around. And it's, it's the people that are the Friends of Rickwood. They're nice guys. They're older gentlemen. They're kind of, sort of the ushers to the thing. And I see a couple brothers in the back, and they're slugging sodas. And I was like, nah, I think I'm going to go hang with them. They're the groundskeepers.
Yes.
And they were like, are you sure that's what you want to do? I was like, yeah, like, yes, like, less work for you. We're good. I'll go hang out with them. And that's where I met all of them and met my man Jabril, who's the head groundskeeper there. And so by the time everybody came at 3:00, Cheats, it was raining. So boo-hoo for them. They didn't get to see nothing. I had been there all day. Yes. And so that had happened a year before. So when it came time around again, your boy had a plan. I said, listen, I'm 100% serious. I said, if there's one thing I do this year, it's going to be Rickwood.
Yep.
Like, there's just no world. I mean, that's where, and I appreciate the kind words. I said to my people, I said, I mean, this has to happen or else we've got a fundamental problem with what I've been doing for the past couple of years. And I'm not saying like it was a threat. I'm just explaining to folks how important this was to me. And so I had the whole setup. I said, look, I'm going to go down there for the whole week. I'm not just going for the game. I'm going to break it down because I know for a fact, shout outs to Roy Wood Jr., you know what I'm saying? All y'all know who he is, the comedian who's from Birmingham. I said, listen, is there enough to be down there for a week and write about something every day? He was like, for you, are you crazy? Absolutely. Yep. Get down there as soon as possible in terms of your ability to really break down what's going on in Birmingham, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And so I got there Sunday. Game was on a Thursday.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like, that's a lot of time, dog. You know what I mean? This was a week of my life. And I was dedicated to making sure that every part of Birmingham I knew about had a story told. This is where the visual aids come in.
I'm ready. I can't wait.
Okay. So, here is the Birmingham Times from last year, which is the first time I went there. All right. That was that. And then the Rickwood Field stuff. Here's a scorecard.
Oh, how awesome.
From the game, awesome. Montgomery Biscuits versus the Birmingham Black Barons. The Birmingham Barons at the time.
So that was the AA game. That happened on the Tuesday.
That was, in fact, the day that he passed. There's a bunch of things here. Hold on. This is what I was looking for. Sorry. This is what I was looking for, which is the official program of the game. So my point is that there was so much going on that week that I luckily enough had some inroads in because I had taken the time the year before to meet some of these folks, and I said, I'm coming back. I wrote all the stories so I don't have to retell them in certain ways, but I can say this, Cheats, is that it was then that I realized, oh, wow, the force is strong in this situation. Like, I don't know who else would be doing this like this. And thankfully, shouts to my homegirl, Shakia Taylor, Shake. We all know Shake. She's the best.
The best.
She was down there. A couple other people we know were down there. Shouts to Andrew Golden. Shouts to Deesh. Like all of these people that I had known were a part of the community that does this. Like just enough of us were there. And I know you weren't there, Cheese, but it wasn't like it was some.
We were texting. And I think we were texting, and you were like, I'm in the stadium. This is so surreal.
The vibes were immaculate,
Yes.
dog. And like that was a very interesting part of all of this. That Monday, we went to the showing of his HBO documentary. That's when I was hanging out with Michael Mays, Willie's son. And the next day he passed at the ball game. And I remember I got up from the table. Andrew Golden's the one who told me. He was yelling. He said, Yates, turn around. I'm like, what do you turn? He says, turn around. And he showed me his phone, and it was a tweet from the Giants. And I just got up and left the box. And I was walking around crying, not in that boo-hooing kind of way, but like the sting kind of way. And I might have punched a wall, and somebody was like, hey, man, are you okay? I said, no, I am not okay. Excuse me. I apologize. And I walked sort of back into the sort of fairground part, not fairground, but like the central part where they had the desk. And there I ran into Jackson Newsmith. He's over at Uninterrupted. He's been a big part of a lot of what they do. Jackson is the homie. I've known him since he was in college. He's a former Giants bat boy, clubby, all that. You know, if you know Jackson, you know action is about it. I saw him. He was the first person I saw.
Oh, man.
I mean, we might have hugged for 3 whole minutes. You know what I'm saying? And like, we just kind of went over and sat on like a wheelbarrow or whatever. And, you know, that moment was something that after I scrambled back to the hotel room to talk to SVP, and that was just really a real cathartic thing. I thought to myself, damn, I don't know who else would have done this, man. You know what I mean? And I that's not to blow my own horn, but I just knew the work I had put in that year alone. And sort of, this gets back to sort of a larger point, which is I felt that this year in Black baseball for me was very much sort of stamping things to make sure that we understood, okay, we can move along now. There's been this, you say microwave, there's been kind of a microwave of Black baseball coverage in the last 2 to 3 seasons where people are kind of jumping in like, oh, this is cool. Look at this. It's so edgy. It's this and that and the third. And it's like, hold on now. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more here than just the Black dudes or the cool dudes on the baseball field. There's other things. And I'm not saying going back as far as everything all the time, but I mean, some living histories that, you know, we might need to address here before everybody starts acting like, you know, Jazz Chisholm is the best player we've ever seen in our lives. And that's no knock on him. I'm just saying he's the name that comes to mind when I think about what some people are only about when it comes to Black baseball. So to be front and center for those moments, and I got to go to Willie's homegoing service.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a whole nother part of that you were there and wrote about back in the Bay. Yeah,
you know, I went back to
different. It was
that was crazy. Bill Clinton was there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah,
but there's a couple things I wanted to touch because and like I said, I think that you were the perfect person. For lack of a better term, you were just you're the right guy of our times and the right guy to be there. And I wanted to, because you also had the opportunity, the ability, and you actually took, and the courage, because Reggie Jackson did what he did and said what he said at Rickwood, and there was a lot of people that didn't want to address it or wanted to address it only in like a certain type of way. And that was another part. There were several parts of this year, but that was another time where this year I was like, thank God Yates is on the job here. Because again, so for everybody that's following this podcast knows, but Reggie Jackson gets asked the question about, is he happy to be returning to Birmingham for this Rickwood occasion? And Reggie just goes on how hard it was to be a Black man in the 70s, 60s, 70s playing in Birmingham. And just in general, and it just brought up so many things. We're all watching it. And again, my sense of humor is one that I think most of the time is appropriate, but some of the time.
Nah. I mean, Black folks laugh to keep from crying a lot of times. And there's certain situations where you gotta laugh. What else are you gonna do?
I remember texting my best friend, and they were like, they ain't never gonna let Reggie back on live TV ever again. Like, this is it. Like, I was like, turn on Fox now.
Shut it down.
Reggie's not coming back. He's not coming back.
No.
Because you wrote about it, but when?
Yeah.
What?
So,
tell me.
One of the things I wrote is this. Here's the thing about Reggie, is that Reggie, you know, there's a lot of stories about Reggie. And Reggie is obviously very famous. And Reggie is obviously very smart. But there was something that I could tell immediately when I saw Reggie, not even that day, but the night before, because we happened to be at the same hotel, where I was like, something doesn't feel right about this. Like, he seems more off point than I would even think, you know what I'm saying, just based on travel, where it is, but that's not my business. I'm not going to be all up in Reggie's face like that. You know what I'm saying? Saw him, said, what's up? He moved on. And it wasn't until that interview happened. And by the way, shouts to Fox for like letting him cook on that. They didn't cut away. They didn't panic and start having people interrupt him, which could have been that could have been much worse. Not that it was bad, but like it could have been ugly. And he just said what he said, you know, full hard R and everything. And I thought to myself, like, it wasn't really up until that point that I thought to myself, like, man, I've been in Alabama a long time. I've only been here for 4 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and Reggie's from Philadelphia. Yeah. You know, he's an East Coast black man like myself, like you, where it's like, yo, this is palpable if you're even paying any bit of attention. Never mind if you played here 40 years ago or whatever it was, you know? So, like, it wasn't until then where I became sort of self-conscious about it. And I've been to Birmingham before, you know, not like for anything. I'd gone to stay there to go to an Alabama game, you know, like just casual interactions that were everyday Birmingham, not where like, oh, the black folks are here. You know what I'm saying? Not like that. And I remembered, I was thinking like, you know what, come to think of it, this place wasn't that tight. You know what I mean? In terms of like when I was here before, and, you know, people were acting kind of crazy, you know, but it was a little different by this point. And I just felt like it was too impossible, having been there for all that time, to not say something about, oh yeah, again, we're still in Alabama, Jack. You know what I mean? And I think that it was, for me, it kind of changed the course of the rest of my year. It was very difficult for me to get up, frankly, after doing all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of hard for me to get up for other stuff, because I felt like I laid it all out on the table. That was, I mean, I was ready to do that anyway. But then when Willie passed, and I had to process that and everything and sort of represent nationally, which is, you know, I'm well equipped to do. That's what's up. That's what I'm here for. But like, there was a good smooth 2 weeks after that where I was like, I ain't doing nothing. You know what I mean? I don't mean that flippantly. I was just like, I can't, you know what I mean? I have to let the soil regenerate, you know, to use a farmer's term. And that was real, dog.
Now it was so on point, because I do think, like you said, everything that was happening, even the stories that they were telling, even Willie passing, what Reggie did was he bought this dose of kind of honesty and reality and like a weight to the event that I don't think it would have had he not done what he did. And it brings me to a larger point, because I do think when we're talking about, let's like big picture perspective of covering black baseball, especially in 2024, there is this, I think for me, I feel this sense to want to highlight a lot of the good all the time, because I want to be encouraging of the process that, hey, some of these things really are changing. Some of these things are getting better. Some of these programs are working. And by doing so, I often feel like there's got to be some reality there told as well, about not necessarily where we're headed, but where we are. And so there was a lot of things in 2024 that were saying, okay, we're headed X, but Reggie Jackson reminded us of where we've been and where we are. And where we are is not necessarily, you alluded to it as well when you talk about, they just want to talk about like exciting black players on the field. And they don't want to talk about the fact that it's like, you and I have been having a conversation now for a good 2 years. That's like, you know, like we're peaking up, not quite there yet. Like,
not the Dave Chappelle bit, dog.
We're not quite there yet, right?
No,
like
you're right.
We want to be there, but we're not quite there yet. And we see the building blocks for us to get there. But whenever those blocks really become real, like those really building things, there's always something that's going to remind us that we're not there.
Yeah. And go ahead. No, I was just going to say, like, I mean, I think one of the things I've learned too, as a result of that this year, and I think honestly, it was when we were together, you know, which was that like there are many more avenues where this conversation is welcome than there used to be. And that's due to the efforts of people like yourself, people like me. There's so many different people now that are doing a lot of things that I feel that we've all understood that we ain't all got to be in the same pool at the same time.
Yep.
And so when we were that, which is really important to me for a lot of different reasons that are almost as important interpersonally as they are anything else. Like we don't need everybody doing everything at once. Like some people are better at other things in terms of what portion of the game you're covering, what this, what that, this can all come together without everybody trying to be the foremost person on anything. And that's that's where this year really meant the most to me. Cheats is that I recognize that I cannot move around to every single scouting event. Yep. The things that you're able to do because of how your schedule works, they bring a light and a sort of a paint to the palette that nobody else can. Yep. And everybody who does these in their own different ways. And we're finally kind of at a point now where, at least to me, the people that are good at it are in their lanes and doing explorative stuff, and they know how to be a part of all this. And we're not all trying to overshadow the same conversation. And so that's where I felt really lucky. In fact, this year, I didn't do a whole ton of stuff in terms of being at a bunch of events, but the ones I hit, I was like, listen, these are where I am now. You know what I'm saying? And so I appreciate folks for, being a part of it and understanding what the storytelling journey is. But, I'm not trying to be Mr. Everywhere at all times anymore. We got people for that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a blessing to all of us.
The way you can kind of add to the system, right? Like,
yeah, again, correct.
Black people are used to any, I think, profession or any, like, we're used to the one guy.
Yeah.
Right. It can only be one guy. And so, hold on 1 second. I think I lost. Oh, there we go. I think I'm back. Hold on 1 second.
Camera's getting fuzzy. FBI found you, dog.
Witness protection. All right, I think I'm back.
There you go.
But we're used to the one guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Being at the top, and a lot of times it's you wait your turn, right, to be the guy. Like, sure. if we are historians of journalism as well, so we know the Wendell Smiths and all these guys. But it's like and Claire Smith. We're gonna talk about her in a second. But it's like you wait your turn to be the guy, and it's all this like feeding frenzy to pull everybody else down. That is, yes, I think that is diversifying, especially around baseball, especially around Black baseball, where you have so many different voices being able to tell different types of stories that I do think really matter and really make it. And I think that's another part of what we're talking about, that building block, right? To make it more palatable and acceptable into our community. Neither one of us can do what the amazing Bob Kendrick does in the way that he tells stories. And you know what I mean? And we don't have
We're
to.
all doing like, there's legitimately a Black baseball journalism community now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In a way that there just kind of wasn't. You know what I mean? At least when I first got into this game, in the same way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to imply brothers weren't doing stuff, but it felt very much like, I mean, and I don't want to go after anybody, but like this was kind of my problem part of the reason why I wanted to get my hands in this, when they were like, basically, what do you want to do? When I got to ESPN, I said, I need to get to the ground level because I see too many dudes that just show up at big league ballparks and complain about what's not there. Like I that's whack, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not for me. And so, I just feel that organically I've been blessed to be able to, lift and carry as we climb, to show folks like we all out here, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to hog every story just to act like I'm the one that knows about it. Go ahead and check Cheats, check Mans. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. I'm a big believer in the village. And I feel that 2024 showed me a lot more about what the village can be. And I mean that from a journalism and representation standpoint in media. We can get into a whole conversation about content versus journalism, except we're not going to do that. Right. But what I'm saying is, you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like everybody is kind of settled into like, all right, we do this, we do that. Folks are here to learn stuff. Folks are here to do that. Not everybody's trying to, play the big joker all the time. It's just not necessary.
So let me ask you this. Because out of respect for time.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm assuming we're not going to get it in 2024 because you, like you said, Papa, are taking vacation. Yeah, you're going away, but you usually do a State of Black Baseball kind of year-end wrap-up. And we talked a lot about obviously your journey and what you've done this year. We haven't talked a lot about what happened on the field. So let's like, if you are putting on let's look at the State of Black Baseball. Let's look at what's on the field. I think last couple of years, we've always been talking about like, God, it's building, it's building, it's building. It's not there yet. This year, I will have to say for me on the field, because I started doing this thing. I think you know about it, but
yeah, I know what you did. Go ahead.
I started doing this thing about a tracker. I did an Excel spreadsheet for every team and Black American born players, and when they went up and went down, and every
By the way, y'all, other Bamas ain't doing this.
No,
this is what Cheeks does. To quote Jada, I don't live in Miami. I don't live in Colorado. This is what I do. You know what I'm saying? That's what you do, bro. I respect that so much, man.
But do you know how sobering that was?
Yeah.
To realize, like, with all the potential and the prospects and all the people we're talking about, and guys, when we looked at who was actually getting the call, who was actually on rosters, who was down, it was a big dose of reality.
Yeah.
That made it sound like maybe we aren't exactly where we need to be in regards to the game and having our players get the calls to play. You know what I'm saying? And I was having a conversation with Coach Marquise Grissom, who's now, I don't know what he is now. And he's like the guru of all Atlanta baseball.
Grip is the godfather. I love Grip.
He's working on all these things. But me and him were talking, and he was like, there's no reason why a guy like a Chandler Simpson shouldn't
be in the bigs. Right.
Yeah, stealing 100 bases in Double-A.
Chandler Simpson, by the way, who, if y'all don't know, played in that Rickwood Field game.
He played on for the Biscuits,
Montgomery. Yeah.
But he's
good kid too. Met his dad. Like that family. So yeah.
He is going to be a pro. Like he is a star. But you saw what Lawrence Butler did this year. You saw what they're doing with James Wood this year. And it was like there is more of us that could be on those rosters. And you look at those rosters and you're like, what in the world is happening? Like, what is happening? And so I don't know. When you look at the state of Black baseball on the field, I will tell you 2024 for me was a very sobering year, even in light of all the things we're talking about.
This is where it gets personal again for me as well, because like this also happened to be a year where a good amount of people that I knew from having seen them develop kind of came into their own. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking of Cam Collier, minor league player of the year for the Reds. You talk about Wood. I met Wood when he played at IMG. You know what I'm saying? In a high school baseball all-star game. You know what I'm saying? And I dropped into Omaha this year to make sure that, things below. And I think for me, and maybe this is a little bit selfish, Cheats, I've tried to shield myself because there are people like you doing the actual stats work. And I'm being serious here from getting too affected by that week to week, because it would mess with my morale. You know what I'm saying? The actual numbers like that can often be very disconcerting and derailing, quite frankly, when you're trying to stay focused. And I look at some of the top stories. You think about Z-Law, who we just talked about. I call him Z-Law. That's his IG. Lawrence Butler. I mean, the guy had 2 3-run homers this year. He was batting leadoff for the Athletics. I happened to cover the last game that they played in that field, which is a whole other story, by the way.
We didn't even talk about
that. We didn't even mention that. Go check that out on ESPN Daily if you want to. Short version. God. Too many black folks were coming to the games. Too many black, Latino, and Asian folks were going to the games in Oakland, and they didn't like it. So they decided to leave. I'm being very shorthand with that, but if you've ever been to an A's game, you know how they get down out there. All right? It is the Bay, area all day. It is unlike anything else in baseball, and you could tell immediately why an owner would not want to be a part of that if he thought he was of a certain, let's just say, social echelon. Anyway, I got completely distracted. My point was stories like Lawrence Butler, I have to be able to take in as good ones. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm at that stage in my journey where, yes, I understand that the game is not where it wants to be at the big league level, but I see the seeding at the lower level. And by seeding, I mean that, again, in an agrarian kind of way. And I never thought this was going to be some overnight thing where they just started plucking brothers out of nowhere. We were going to have to grow new ones, for lack of a better term. And I think that's something that I haven't been able to see that over the past, near decade. That's made it easier for me to process, because the kids that I do know who are actual children are now actually ones that are making their way up. And I hope that there will be plenty that I don't know that can get incrementally there as well. And just quickly, last thing I'll say about that is I've noticed it the most at the D1 college level. Almost every good top 25 program has 2 to 3 brothers. 5 years ago, flat out not the case. You know what I'm saying? And that's where, because the sort of psychological lift of taking chances, if you will, and I only say that in context of what already happened and not in terms of what I actually think the judgment is, it's easier at the college level. There's more teams. It's a little less cutthroat. You can take so-called risks on people that if they work out, you say, oh, well, damn, what have we been doing? And it's like, right. And for whatever reason, it just feels like that's, again, at the D1 college level, and I'm not just talking about specific schools, pretty much every team that's any good, because you can't compete, quite frankly, if you don't have, a couple of brothers on your squad who know how to do different things. It's just changed. And I've noticed it just on anecdotal evidence and just on, performance as well.
So we could talk about this till the cows come home, only because, not only did I do the Major League the Excel spreadsheet, I've got obviously the top prospect spreadsheet for every organization.
Right.
And I did a story on the fact that Texas, 9 brothers last year's team, Florida State, 7. Like, I did the whole thing, and I did a video shouting out all the college D1 teams that had just a ton of American-born African-American players.
Shouts to Christian Moore at Tennessee.
And Tears and a bunch of other folks. But the funny part was, I think the most gratifying thing about doing all of that is who I know as like the godfather of black college baseball right now, and a modern day guy, Coach Thompson over at Georgetown.
Coach T, Edwin,
sent me a note and a picture of all of his black players at a signing day after I'd done the video, and was like, oh, don't forget about us, bro. Yeah. And I was like, he was the first person I ever had on the
You
podcast.
left Coach T out the video?
No, it was like numbers. It was numbers of all these top 25 programs.
Bro, yeah, Coach T been getting it done.
But it was so fitting. And I was able to cover the Cactus Jack tournament in Minnesota at the beginning of the year, and I was able to talk to all of those HBCU coaches and learn about 2 things that changed. I think does change the landscape of college baseball in a way that is positive for our players. NIL changes it so much,
correct,
in a right way, because if Ricky Henderson could have got NIL money and played baseball in college, he may have gone and played baseball in college.
That's true.
Ricky Henderson tells the story. Who's paying me what? This is where I'm going.
It's a good point.
That was it. And so now we've got, certain programs with the expansion of scholarships. We know certain programs that can afford it now can up their scholarship totals.
Right.
There were some changes with the assistant coaches that I think helps, people feel comfortable.
Bigger numbers are allowed on rosters from a coaching standpoint. Yep.
And then you're dealing with this portal. This portal is like the wild, wild west. But what it does for some of our black players, that say you go to that HBCU and you're at Southern or you're at Grambling and you're balling out, next year you're going to be on Louisville or you're going to be on Kentucky. You know what
Perhaps.
I mean?
Yeah.
And the elevator goes both ways. So there was a kid that was talked about being drafted this year that winded up at Southern, but he was a top kid and went to a D1, didn't play, and comes down, and now he gets the ball out of these plays. So I love everything you're talking about in that respect. This year, like you were saying, we had a really interesting thing too. I think we had, I want to say 6 or 7 MLB debuts that had been on the show prior to them hitting the major league.
That's a great feeling for you, bro.
So it was Justin Henry Malloy, James Wood, all these guys that were just getting the call. We would re-air their shows as soon as they got the call.
Did you see y'all? This guy's a programming genius on top of being a great baseball fan.
But it's because
Take notes, kiddos. I live in a double A city. What he's doing.
I live in a double A city. It's not magic.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, it is in front of you. You see this all the time.
When they come, and again, it's really funny because you were saying some of the D1 programs. You're talking about UVA, which is an hour away from me, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like Tennessee. Access to those guys is a little bit restrictive. You come to Richmond, Virginia, to a Richmond Flying Squirrels game, and you say, "I want to talk to this black player, this black player, this black player." Guess who's on the podcast?
They're rolling out the red carpet immediately.
They are excited to talk to you. So no, but brother, look, we want to put a bow on this.
Thank you, man.
This has been so much. You've done so much work that I really want to highlight, and you can actually go back if you just type in Clinton Yates and Anscape. You can read a litany of articles that they were put in. All the work that you've done from everything we talked about earlier. One thing that I do want to end on is because you actually put in some amazing work as well when we talk about the World Series and around the World Series. And all of us, we were podcasting three days a week during the playoffs.
Yeah.
It was insane. But there was some real just awesomeness, for lack of a better term, around the fact that it was the Dodgers and the Yankees, and it appealed. This was, again, you couldn't script a better national story than to have Shohei and Judge and Mookie and Soto and all of this stuff. And then you, my brother, are able to talk. You get on ESPN Daily Claire Smith, and you guys go in a direction that was so interesting and just so different and so historic. And it was just, when you looked at the end of the season through the playoffs and having that World Series, like what are your kind of thoughts that came to mind for you?
It was not exactly the perfect end to a season, because there's no real way to script that as a journalist, as you said. But I remember thinking, like, I'm so glad it turned out this way. It really was a coda, and not because I'm rooting for the Dodgers specifically or anything like that, just because I live in Los Angeles. That's not really.
We know where you live. It's all good.
I know, but I think that's an easy thing for, let's just say, I don't know, some website to clip and take way out of context in a larger sense. What I mean is, I'm glad the humans involved were the humans involved and the ones that got to win. And, you know, sort of a side story, it was fascinating to see that Freddie Freeman played that well in terms of the injury, in terms of everything he's done this year. And I say that because they got rid of his best friend, a brother, Jason Hayward, on the team before they made that run. I remember thinking, like, damn, the Dodgers got rid of Freddie Freeman's homeboy, my man's, J.A., they are going cutthroat. This is a problem. Not a problem at all. And, you know, I say that because we're now at a place where that happens and not everybody boo-hoos. It doesn't feel like the worst move in the world. It is a legitimate baseball move, and we all know who that guy is. There was a time in which we were far closer to Panic Brothers every single time somebody went up or went down, as you said before. And for a guy on a good team, I get it, he's old, but like everybody was thinking, all right, well, he'll be there for a little bit. Finally, the black veteran that we have on a ball team. Nope, not there. But
he just hit it like a game-winning home run like a couple days before he got cut.
You know, but Mookie shows who he is in a way that I just still don't think people really recognize how good of a baseball player he is. Like on a basic level, to be able to do all the things that he does and the plate approaches he brings. He had a tough struggle, got to the World Series, figured it out. And then for Doc, you know, I it's hard to explain how cool that is to see.
You wrote a great
somebody
article about
who lives here. Yeah, I mean, he's been a guy that has done a better job than most people, but everybody acts like it's just happenstance. Something they do to us a lot. College football, I'm looking at you. Anyway, where they act like,
read Clinton Yates' Dion piece, Coach Braun piece.
It's always some weird excuse. Oh, well, you know, he's got the best players. Oh, well, you know, he's got the biggest payroll. Oh, well, they didn't win it, all this and that. Meanwhile, he's got all these daggone pennants and all these division titles. Other Bamas ain't got none of that. And apparently they're the smartest people in baseball. I'm like, what are we doing here? And so for Dave to be able to get his props and also like soundly outmanage somebody else. It wasn't just what was going on. It was a season full of, this is what my team is like at the big moments. This is what your team is like at the big moments. Kicking the ball all around, not covering bases, and dropping balls in the lights.
And
like,
they called
that can't happen.
The interesting thing is they called it out, which was weird, like very uniquely weird, I think, in baseball, especially after you win. But it was one of those things where it was like, hey, look, we knew if we kept putting the pressure on them, they were going to fold. They were going to make
come see me.
They were going to have that inning that they had. And it you know, it was very interesting because you talked about Dave Roberts and we talked about Boone, and we also talked about Judge and we talked about Shohei.
Yeah.
And we were just like, who has the most? That was my favorite question throughout the entire playoffs and World Series, was like, who has the most pressure? Because if Dave Roberts doesn't get to the World Series, if they lose that Padres series, how hot is that seat?
Bro, I was at that series and like I covered that series and it was intense.
It was
bro.
Great. That was the best.
Super intense. And it was and reminder, the season ended, the regular season ended with the Pods triple playing the Dodgers out of a game. Like there was real life baseball intensity. And so that was the other thing too, to your point. I got to exhale a little bit because again, I do live in Los Angeles. I did not have another year of Doc ain't the guy in me. I just did not have it. And so that sounds a little trite, but it's true because you know how much a guy like that deserves it based on how much he's given back to the game overall. So, I'm happy at what went down. I'm happy at how it went down, and the people that, are important that we've known around baseball are important for a long time. Mind you, our first season without Dusty at the helm too, which was wild. We got to pass on the torch in a way from player to manager to culture that really made a sense for a lot of people.
Mr. Yates, I'm going to leave it there. This has been a lot of fun. I mean, again, just you're not going to get a break. You're taking a break, but you're not going to get a break because you are going to be doing just some of the most awesome things throughout the holidays. First holiday with the little man. I'm excited for you, my guy.
Thank you.
You're going to be an outstanding. You already are, but you're going to be like an outstanding father that goes through this wonderful journey. And it's just going to be awesome to see you do that and go through it. Man, the year's not over. In regards to me, I will be back in the Bahamas. One of your favorite.
Right. Okay.
I'll be back in the Bahamas next month as they go through kind of those Players Alliance meetings and the Don't Blink Home Run Derby. That'll be a lot of fun. Those events kind of grow every year.
The next time I get back there, I'm so excited to see what that's like at this point.
It's insane. It'll be insane.
I told you to go. See, for those of you who don't know,
they did tell me.
I was pressing Cheats to go to that joint for like 2 years, and he finally got there. He was like, "Damn, Yates, you were right."
It's awesome. No, and we'll have some hot stove stuff. Not just Soto, but there's a my list now is the running list of free agents and guys that'll need to land. We'll see if Tommy Pham can keep his streak going about being in the playoffs every year. I don't know how this works out.
It's amazing how that works out. Yeah,
it's amazing. So
professional hitter,
man. But look, you enjoy the holidays, my brother. You enjoy the end of this year, and one thing I've never been to, and hopefully we'll be able to go to together, is spring training in 2020.
Yeah. No, I'm planning on doing a little spring training, so that should be fun. Hopefully this kid is a little travel ready by then. And I got to do this because the young man was born 5 weeks early. November is Prematurity Awareness Month. For all of you out there who don't know, 380,000 kids a year in this country alone are born before term. My young man, Keanu Jedi, KJ, was born 5 weeks early. His mother is doing well. So a big shout out to all of those at the UCLA Medical Center at Santa Monica. They do a great job, and they were integral in helping us start our family. So with that, I shall go, Cheats.
You shall go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Black Baseball Mixtape podcast. Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors. This has been an amazing year. We want to thank our amazing Black Baseball Mixtape crew. We will be doing more things to round out the year, but we got to thank Stilo Sports, the Players Alliance, Horencio 21, Rebellion Harvest Sunflower Seeds, and Numbers Game Scorecards, which I know Yates has a Black Baseball Mixtape scorecard somewhere around there.
Right here, somewhere.
He's got it somewhere around there. But
no, hold on, wait. Now
we gotta go. We gotta go.
Goodbye. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen,
see you later.
We are